closer on, we're looking at the Super 7 series, which, as I've been told, is currently folded in its current format. I understand that there's moves to bring back a revised version for next season. How important is it to get a tournament like that? And let's keep with the Super 7 series as a name for it. How important is it for there to be a national Super 7 series tournament where clubs like Samurai and Marauders effectively represent an elite level? How important is that for Ben Ryan, the future of Sevens, the growth of Sevens? And do you think the RFU should be playing a sort of leading part in that?
I think it's a massive part. I think that just gives you clarity on the pathway, because you have your international and you drop it down to your elite. Now, if you have an elite tournament of 4 or 5 tournaments around the country, which is what we're talking about here, which is what they're looking to re-engineer, then all of a sudden, then all these open tournaments, all these kind of weekly tournaments, you could have some sort of selection process that buys you a ticket into that if you're an up and coming, so be that promotion or relegation. But it also allows these elite sides to be scouting and doing the work for the likes of Paul John, Phil Greening and Ben Ryan at these kind of other tournaments to find the players that may or may not be able to step up for them in this series. So it's a self-help kind of pathway. So I think it's absolutely crucial, and it allows aspiring teams to find their way through, gives them a pathway what they're trying to get to. It provides players a clear pathway where they're trying to get to. It allows those clubs that are in there not to rest on their laurels, but to find other players, and it allows Paul John, Ben Ryan and Phil Greening to watch from the outside and see the best players on show, because the new series will be a GB focus kind of series. So it's tailored to help towards Rio. So as a consequence, it's something that the RFU, the WRU and the SRU need to be colluding together and go, do you know what, we need to be helping this, and buying into a common format and a common structure to allow us to be able to pick the best teams for our home nations, which ultimately then will lead to Rio. And below that, you have the grassroots teams fighting their way through in order to get an opportunity to go up against these so-called big invitation teams. But you should never forget the likes of Samurai, Marauders, and they used to be the little grassroots side, and there was teams before them, and so there's going to be the next Samurai or Marauders or Whalers that's currently trying to fight its way through. And I think that type of structure gives clarity to everybody. So I think absolutely they should be investing in it. They should be helping with the infrastructure, with ensuring that these events are as professional as they can be, and then putting other structures in place within the grassroots part of the Seventh Circuit, so that these teams can find their way through and get their reward at the end of the year. I mean, you look back at the old days, that's exactly how the Middlesex Sevens used to work, didn't it? You used to have all your local kind of qualifiers, and then what was the reward? Well, the reward was you get your ticket to Twickenham to take on one of the big guns.
But it's interesting you say Middlesex, because my next question was going to be about 5 years ago, Middlesex Sevens, if you got through the qualifying tournaments, you could be there. And I think 2 years ago, it was interesting that they ran, I think that was the inaugural year for the Premiership Sevens, or
JP Morgan.
JP Morgan Sevens. They ran that at the same time as the Middlesex Sevens. But what happened was the Middlesex Sevens became the top of the invitational teams, and almost clubs like Wasps, who have won Middlesex Sevens, didn't feature in that, and it almost took away from the potential media exposure. Because I guess the question I'm asking is the loss of that media exposure, because Middlesex didn't happen this year, as I understand.
It's finished.
The loss of that media exposure for the invitational teams has been quite detrimental. But it was interesting that the JP Morgan series, almost every team had somebody from the circuit. Oh, at least one person. I think London Welsh had up to 3, maybe 4 players.
Well, London Welsh was Samurai Welsh, because they come to the Premiership, they didn't have an academy, because JP Morgan was created really for the academy boys to showcase in a different arena, so we're seeing the stars of tomorrow today. London Welsh came up from the Championship, they didn't have an academy in place, so they contacted Samurai and said, right, we need your help. And Samurai said, okay, we'll come, we'll use players that we've used, that we're part of, that we've used in the 7 series. which is what they did. But these players are lesser players. In theory, they're amateur players or semi-pro players because they're not on pro contracts, they've not been earmarked to be in these Premiership clubs. And they more than competed against the stars of tomorrow, which illustrates the importance of the game in terms of a player's development, and also illustrates that there is an opportunity and an area whereby you can find one or two players that haven't come quite through the system that could still do a job. And you know, I would love to see a hybrid of the Middlesex Sevens. Well, it is almost like the Middlesex Sevens of old, where you would have the top 12 Premiership clubs, be their academy players or however they want to do it. And different clubs adopt different ways. Like London Irish put out all their back three. Irrelevant whether you had 50 caps or you were a kiddie, because they use it as part of their conditioning. Go against maybe the winner or the top two from the new Super 7 series, and put, because it can only help and assist the growth of the game, spreading the word of the game, but also it will be really good rugby to watch. And let's not forget that whilst it is a business, sport is that, rugby is the business first and foremost, and creating gladiator kind of confrontations, be it the top invitation team against London Irish, or whoever, is everything. I mean, that year that for the Samurai were in the last 3 Middlesex Sevens, the first one they went up against a full strength London Irish team. They had like 7 players, all of their team had been capped at international level, lost by a point. Next year it was a repeat again where Samurai came on top, but it was full on, it was full blooded, and the crowds loved it. And I think that type of rugby experience can only help the game, can only help the product of the JP Morgan, can only help the product of the Premiership, and it also tests those players against a different type of rugby individual rather than playing the same people every time. And the reality about rugby sevens and the international circuit is you get to play against different styles and different types of player, which enables you to become a better player yourself. And they're important things for a rugby player who aspires to kind of maximise their potential.